When I first met Adrian, he seemed like the kind of man every woman dreamed of. Charming but soft-spoken, intelligent yet humble, with a gaze that made me feel as if I was the only person in the room. I was 26, fresh out of a failed engagement, and desperate to believe that love could still heal what loneliness had broken. He appeared at just the right moment, like fate had handed me a second chance. We met at a charity gala in the city, one I attended reluctantly because my friend insisted I needed to get back out there. Adrian was the keynote speaker, a psychologist who talked about human connection and emotional dependency with such passion that it almost felt spiritual. When he caught my eye across the room, I felt a strange pull, something magnetic and unsettling at the same time. Later that evening, he found me by the balcony, handed me a glass of champagne, and told me he had been hoping to speak to me all night. From that moment on, Adrian became a constant in my life. He texted every morning, called every evening, and seemed to know exactly when I needed company. He had this uncanny ability to make me feel safe, to make me believe that I had finally found someone who understood me. Within weeks, I was falling for him faster than I wanted to admit, and he encouraged it, feeding the illusion that our connection was something rare, almost sacred. But looking back now, I can see that what I thought was love was the beginning of possession. It started subtly. He wanted to know where I was, who I was with, what time I'd be home. He said it was because he worried about me. "The city isn't safe," he would say, his voice calm, persuasive. "I just want to make sure you're okay." At first, I found it sweet. But soon, his concern turned into control. When I stayed late at work, he would show up outside my office, waiting in his car, smiling as if it were the most natural thing in the world. If a male colleague texted me, even about work, he'd ask to see the message. He said transparency was the foundation of trust. And I wanted to be the kind of woman who didn't hide things from the man she loved. My friends started noticing before I did. They said I was changing quieter, more withdrawn, always checking my phone, always explaining myself, but I defended him. I said he just cared deeply, that he loved me more than anyone ever had. What I didn't realize was that love, when mixed with obsession, becomes something poisonous. The night he proposed, I should have seen the signs. We were at his lake house, a place that felt too isolated, too far from the world. He cooked dinner, lit candles, and told me he couldn't imagine life without me. His words were beautiful, but his eyes were intense too intense. When I hesitated, when I told him I wasn't sure if I was ready, something in him shifted. The warmth vanished, his jaw tightened. Then, just as quickly, he smiled again, slipped the ring onto my finger, and whispered, "You will be." From that moment, saying no stopped feeling like an option. Our wedding was small, elegant, and perfect in every way except the one that mattered. My parents were uneasy, though they couldn't say why. Adrian was impeccable that day, polite, gracious, adored by everyone, but his hand on my back felt heavy, like an anchor. His smile never reached his eyes. Marriage for a while was peaceful, but beneath that peace, something darker was growing. Adrian began choosing my clothes, saying certain colors suited me better. He rearranged my schedule, saying it would help us spend more time together. He wanted access to my social media, saying married people shouldn't have secrets. Every part of my life became his to oversee, to adjust, to control. I told myself it was love, that his intensity meant I mattered, that he cared enough to want me all to himself. But it wasn't long before I began to feel the cage closing in. The day I told him I wanted to visit my sister alone, his expression turned cold. He didn't shout or argue. He just stared at me, silent and calculating. Later that night, he locked the front door and removed the key from the inside. "I can't let you leave angry," he said softly. "We need to talk things through before you go anywhere." That was the first time I realized I might not be safe. But fear is a strange thing. It creeps in slowly, convincing you it's all in your head. I kept hoping that if I loved him more, understood him better, things would return to how they were. Instead, the walls grew higher. The phone calls from friends stopped. The outside world began to fade until my entire existence revolved around him. It wasn't tea until the night I found the hidden room in our basement that I truly understood who I had married. I had gone downstairs to find an old photo album. A storm raged outside, the lights flickering as thunder rolled across the sky. When I reached the bottom step, I noticed something strange and uneven panel behind the wine rack. I touched it, and it moved slightly. Behind it was a door I had never seen before, its handle cold and metallic. My heart pounded as I turned it. Inside was a small, windowless room. The walls were covered with photographs me at work, at the store, sleeping, reading. Every moment of my life captured without my knowledge. There were notebooks too, pages filled with my habits, my routines, even my dreams. In that instant, I understood. Adrian's love wasn't devotion, it was surveillance. His affection wasn't protection, it was control. And I was no longer a wife, I was a possession. As lightning flashed outside, I heard footsteps upstairs. He was home earlier than expected. The basement door creaked open, and I realized there would be no more pretending. This, I thought, is where my confession begins. The moment the basement door creaked open, a wave of dread rippled through me. I froze where I stood, my heartbeat thundering louder than the storm outside. The hidden room behind me seemed to breathe, alive with the weight of every secret it contained. For a few seconds, I considered closing the door and pretending I had never seen it, but my trembling hands refused to move. Adrian's footsteps descended the stairs, slow and deliberate. He always walked like that when he was angry, each step calculated, controlled, as though every sound was meant to remind me that escape was impossible. I quickly pulled the wine rack back into place, forcing the panel shut just as he appeared at the bottom step. His eyes narrowed. "What are you doing down here?" His tone was calm, but the calmness was what terrified me most. Adrian never shouted. He dissected you with silence. I tried to smile, looking for the old photo albums. I thought I'd put them somewhere down here. His gaze flicked to the wall behind me, then back to my face. He studied me for a long, unbearable moment, then smiled faintly. "You should have asked me. There's a lot of junk down here. It's easy to get hurt." When he stepped closer, I caught the faint smell of rain on his coat. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my cheek, his touch gentle but suffocating. "You've been restless lately," he murmured. "Is something bothering you?" Every instinct screamed to lie. I told him no, that everything was fine, that I just wanted to look through old memories. He tilted his head, eyes searching mine for any sign of deception. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded slowly. "You should come upstairs. I'll make tea." I followed him, my legs shaking with every step. The storm continued to rage outside, wind howling against the windows. As he poured the tea, he hummed softly to himself as though nothing was wrong. But when he handed me the cup, I noticed the faint tremor in his hand. He wasn't calm, he was calculating. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of floorboards, the ticking of the clock, the whisper of the wind. At one point, I thought I heard him moving around downstairs. When I gathered the courage to peek through the banister, I saw him standing by the basement door, holding a flashlight. The sight froze my blood. By morning, the wine rack was gone. The hidden door was sealed. He said it was because of mold damage, and that he had called someone to fix it. But I knew. I knew he had discovered that I'd been inside. Over the next few days, Adrian's behavior shifted. Subtly at first. He became overly attentive, cooking my favorite meals, bringing me flowers, suggesting we take a weekend trip. But his kindness had edges. When I mentioned visiting my sister again, his expression darkened. "You're always talking about leaving," he said softly. "Do you find our home uncomfortable?" I told him no, though the word burned my throat. He smiled, satisfied, then pressed a kiss to my forehead that felt more like a warning than affection. The next morning, my car keys were missing. He claimed he had taken them to get the car serviced. The landline stopped working a day later. "Storm damage," he said again. My mobile signal vanished inside the house. The walls themselves seemed to be closing in, brick by brick, until even the idea of escape felt like a fantasy. I tried to keep my sanity by writing notes, tiny scraps of paper hidden inside my novels, recording everything I saw and heard. The phone calls he took late at night, the locked drawer in his study, the faint smell of bleach coming from the basement every few days. One evening, while cleaning the living room, I found something that made my skin crawl. Beneath the sofa cushion was a photograph of me sleeping. The angle was from above, as if taken from the ceiling. My heart pounded as I looked around the room, scanning for cameras. That's when I saw it, a small black dot, barely visible, embedded into the corner of the bookshelf. He was watching me. Even when he wasn't home, he was still there. That night, when he returned, I acted as if nothing had changed. But inside, I began planning. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I had to leave. The danger wasn't distant anymore. It was living under my roof, wearing my husband's face. Then came the breaking point. I woke in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps. The clock read 2:13 a.m. Adrian wasn't in bed. I heard movement downstairs, something dragging across the floor. I slipped out of bed and crept to the hallway. The faint light from the basement glowed beneath the door. Curiosity and fear battled within me until I descended the stairs, silent as possible. The air grew colder with each step. When I reached the bottom, I saw him standing before the sealed wall, his back to me. The panel was open again. The hidden room wasn't empty anymore. There was something inside a table covered with photographs, documents, and what looked like a marriage certificate. My name wasn't the only one on it. There was another woman's. He turned suddenly, eyes locking onto mine, and for the first time, I saw something unfiltered in his expression, rage mixed with triumph. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. My throat tightened. "Who is she, Adrian?" His smile spread slowly, unnervingly calm. "The one before you." "The one who didn't listen?" He stepped closer. I stumbled backward, my hand finding the light switch. The basement plunged into darkness. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then I heard him whisper from the shadows. "You don't leave me, Evelyn?" "No one leaves me." For weeks, I lived like a ghost haunting my own house. Every morning, I woke before Daniel, careful not to make a sound as I dressed. Every evening, I cooked his favorite meals and smiled when he looked at me, as if I were still the woman he married. He called me his perfect wife. I called it survival. The walls of our home seemed to have grown eyes. Every mirror reflected more than my face. It reflected my fear. Daniel's obsession had evolved. He had installed smart cameras in the house, claiming they were for safety. But I knew better. When I accidentally left a light on in the hallway one night, he mentioned it the next morning before I even opened my mouth. "You should rest more, Claire," he said, gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You were up late last night." I froze. "How would you know that?" He smiled. "Because I watch over you, always." That smile, it used to make me feel safe. Now it made my blood run cold. I tried to find moments of freedom. Little things, a walk in the garden, a trip to the local store, a coffee with a neighbor. But Daniel's voice always followed. "Be careful, darling," he'd say. "The world is full of dangerous people." I wanted to scream, "The dangerous one is you." Then one day, I met Sophie. She was the new woman who had moved into the house 2 doors down. A young, confident journalist with a curious mind and too many questions. She noticed my hesitation when Daniel joined our conversation. She noticed how my smile faded when he put his arm around me. Later, when I bumped into her at the cafe, she leaned closer and whispered, "Are you okay, Claire?" That question, it nearly broke me. No one had asked it in years. I wanted to tell her everything, but words felt like traps. If Daniel ever found out, he'd turn my confession into proof of betrayal. So instead, I just said, "I'm fine," and left. That night, as I lay in bed pretending to sleep, Daniel whispered in the dark, "You shouldn't trust people so easily, Claire. Not everyone wants what's best for us. Us." The way he said it sounded less like love and more like a life sentence. The next morning, Sophie knocked at my door. She'd accidentally brought my mail, but I knew she just wanted to check on me. Her eyes scanned the hallway, the expensive furniture, the spotless floors. Then they landed on me, the woman who looked perfect, but felt like she was slowly disappearing. "I know that look," she said softly. "You're afraid of him?" My throat tightened. "You don't understand. I do," she interrupted. "And I can help you." Her words terrified me. Because help meant risk. Help meant Daniel might find out. But deep down, a part of me, the part that still remembered who I used to be, ached for it. That night, I made a decision. I would start documenting everything. His words, his actions, the bruises on my wrists when he held me too tightly. I wrote it all down in a notebook and hid it behind the false panel of my dresser. It was my insurance policy, my silent scream. Days passed and Daniel seemed calmer, almost affectionate again. He brought home flowers, cooked dinner, and played the songs we used to dance to. For a fleeting moment, I thought maybe he'd changed. Then one evening, as we sat together, he said, "You know, I read something today about people who betray their partners, about how guilt always reveals itself in small ways. A glance, a secret." He stared right into my eyes. "I hope you don't have any secrets, Claire." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. The next morning, I noticed something strange. My notebook, the one I'd hidden so carefully, was slightly out of place. My hands trembled as I picked it up. A single red rose lay beside it, freshly cut, the petals perfect and crimson. And inside the notebook, in Daniel's handwriting, were 5 chilling words written at the bottom of my last entry. "I'm glad you finally see. I didn't sleep that night." Or the next. Because I finally understood Daniel wasn't losing control. He was tightening it. He wanted me to know he was always one step ahead, but he made one mistake. He thought fear would keep me silent forever. He didn't realize that fear can turn into something stronger, desperation. And desperation makes even the quietest hearts plan an escape. When I woke the next morning, Daniel was already gone. His side of the bed was cold, the sheets neatly tucked as if he'd never slept there. On the dresser sat a note written in his elegant, deliberate handwriting, "Business meeting out of town. Back by Sunday. Love you always, D." My first thought was relief. My second was opportunity. For the first time in months, the air in the house felt breathable. I didn't hear his footsteps or his voice echoing from another room, just silence. A silence that felt like freedom waiting to be seized. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, staring at the world outside. The normal world, neighbors walking dogs, children playing, couples holding hands. I hadn't realized how long I'd been cut off from it. Sophie's words from that cafe echoed in my mind. "I can help you." Maybe it was time to let her. By noon, I found myself walking to her house, clutching the small notebook I'd hidden from Daniel. When she opened the door, her face lit up with cautious warmth. "Claire," she whispered. "You came." I stepped inside, my hands trembling. "I don't have much time." "He's away for 2 days." Sophie shut the door and led me to her kitchen. "Start from the beginning," she said, and I did. Every painful, terrifying detail, the cameras, the bruises, the constant watching, the way he knew things he shouldn't. By the time I finished, Sophie's eyes were glassy with shock. "You need to get out," she said firmly. "Now." "I can't," I whispered. "He'll find me. He always does. He has my phone tracked. The house is full of cameras. Even my car, he controls everything." Sophie thought for a moment. Then she pulled out her phone. "I know someone, a private investigator. He's helped women in situations like yours. He can make you disappear legally, disappear." The word felt both terrifying and beautiful. She made the call, speaking quietly, using coded language I didn't understand. When she hung up, she looked at me. "His name's Mark Hensley. He'll meet us tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the old library downtown. We'll make a plan." For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. A fragile, flickering flame, but enough to keep me moving. That night, back at the house, I carefully packed a small bag, just the essentials. A few clothes, some cash I'd hidden, the notebook. I placed it under the loose floorboard beneath the bed. My heart raced with every sound, every creak. I kept telling myself, one more night, just one more. But Daniel had his own plans. At 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of the door unlocking. My heart nearly stopped. He wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday. I froze in bed, eyes wide open, as the door creaked. His silhouette appeared in the doorway, tall and silent. He didn't turn on the light. He just stood there, watching me. "Couldn't sleep," he said finally, his voice calm. "Thought I'd come home early." He walked closer, and the faint scent of his cologne filled the room. Then his hand brushed my face, cold and possessive. "I missed you," he murmured. I forced a smile. "I missed you too." Inside, I was dying. He sat beside me, his fingers tracing my wrist where the bruise had barely faded. Then he whispered, "You've been busy while I was gone." My blood turned to ice. "What do you mean?" He smiled, that slow, haunting smile. "Let's not play games, Claire. I know you went to see Sophie." I couldn't breathe. You followed me?" He leaned closer. "You're my wife." "Of course I follow you." I wanted to scream, to run, but his calmness was worse than rage. It was the calm of a man who already controlled the outcome. "Daniel, please." He cut me off with a finger to my lips. "I'm not angry," he whispered. "I just want to understand why you go to her instead of me. You know I only want what's best for us." Tears burned my eyes. "You're hurting me." His eyes softened in a way that made my stomach twist. "Love hurts, darling. But I promise, soon you'll see that everything I've done is because I can't live without you." Then he kissed my forehead, turned off the light, and whispered, "Sleep well." I didn't sleep at all. By morning, he was gone again. This time, no note. Just silence and one of the cameras in the corner blinking red, recording everything. I knew then the escape had to happen today. I met Sophie at the library as planned, shaking and pale. "He knows," I said the moment I saw her. "He came back last night. He knows everything." Sophie's expression hardened. Then we moved faster. "Mark's waiting in the archives room." "He'll explain." Mark was a quiet man in his 40s with sharp eyes and a calm voice. He listened, took notes, then said, "We can do this. But you have to be ready to disappear completely. No phone, no cards, no contact with anyone. Are you prepared for that?" I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Yes." He handed me a burner phone, a new ID, and an address for a safe house outside the city. "Be there by midnight," he said. "Don't go home. Don't tell anyone, not even Sophie once you leave." I promised. But promises are fragile when you're desperate. Because before I could leave, I needed one last thing. My notebook, the evidence. Without it, I had nothing to prove what Daniel had done. So I made the worst decision of my life. I went back home. The house was dark when I entered, every shadow whispering danger. I crept upstairs, heart pounding, pulled up the floorboard, and there it was. My bag, my proof. But as I reached for it, a familiar voice came from behind me. "I was hoping you'd come back." I froze, slowly turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, holding a glass of wine, his eyes calm and cruel. "I told you, Claire," he said softly. "You don't need to run. You belong here with me." And that's when I saw it, the second glass on the dresser, half full. He hadn't been alone. Daniel's voice was low and soft, but the room vibrated with menace. My knees nearly gave out. The glass of wine in his hand glinted under the dim lamp, deep red like blood. I glanced at the second glass on the dresser. Whoever had been here with him was gone or worse, still in the house. My bag, my notebook, everything I had risked to come back for, sat exposed under the floorboard. I felt like a cornered animal. "You plan to leave me?" Daniel said, stepping closer. "After everything I've done for you, after all my sacrifices?" "Why, Claire?" I backed up until my spine hit the wall. "Because you're suffocating me. Because you're dangerous." His smile faltered. "Dangerous?" "You track me. You watch me. You've turned our marriage into a prison." My voice cracked. "That isn't love, Daniel. It's possession." He set down the wine glass on the dresser, moving slowly, almost tenderly. "I'm protecting you. The world is full of liars. People like Sophie feeding you poison about me. But you and I were soulmates. No one understands you like I do." I gripped the edge of the bed, steadying my shaking hands. "You're wrong. Sophie understands. Mark understands. There are people who'll help me." His head tilted. "Mark." His voice was a knife. "Who is Mark?" My heart stopped. "You're lying," he hissed. "You wouldn't betray me like that." "Not my Claire." I forced a steady voice. "This ends tonight, Daniel. I'm leaving. And you can't stop me." For a moment, his face went blank. Then the mask slipped. His eyes darkened like a storm rolling in. "If I can't have you, no one will." He lunged. I dove sideways, the wine glass shattering as I knocked it to the floor. My hand closed around the bag with the notebook inside. Adrenaline burned through my veins. He grabbed my wrist, his fingers like iron. "You think you can just walk out after everything?" I screamed, twisting, my other hand clawing at the dresser. My fingers found the heavy glass candle holder. Without thinking, I swung. The sound of it connecting with his head was sickening. He stumbled back, eyes wide with shock, then fell against the edge of the bed. Blood trickled down his temple. I didn't wait. I bolted. Down the stairs, out the front door, barefoot into the night. I ran until my lungs burned, until the streetlights blurred. At the corner, a car's headlights flashed once the signal. Mark. He jumped out of the car, pulling me inside. "You've got the bag?" he asked. I clutched it to my chest, shaking violently. "He's alive," I whispered. "But he'll come after me." Mark hit the gas. "Not if we move fast." We sped through the city streets, weaving between cars, every shadow feeling like Daniel. When we finally reached the safe house, a small, nondescript cottage on the outskirts of town, I collapsed inside, my body trembling. Sophie was already there. She pulled me into her arms. "You made it," she whispered. But even as she held me, I couldn't stop glancing at the window, expecting him. 2 days passed, then 3. The news came quietly. Daniel had been found unconscious in the house. Evidence of years of stalking, tracking, and manipulation uncovered from his hidden files. The police had enough to hold him without bail. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt empty. Because in his twisted way, Daniel had convinced me of something, that we were bound. That his obsession had stitched us together like a wound. On the 4th day, Mark handed me a new ID, new clothes, and a ticket to another city. "Fresh start," he said. "No one will find you." I looked at Sophie. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "You deserve freedom, Claire. Freedom." The word felt heavy. I took the bag, the ID, and walked out to the waiting car. As we drove away, I looked back at the city one last time. I had survived Daniel, But part of me knew he wasn't finished, not really. People like him didn't just let go. Even behind bars, even miles away, his shadow would stretch. But for now, I had what he never gave me, choice. And as the city lights faded, I whispered to myself, love me or kill me. Either way, you lost.